outside before he comes in here. But we show up. Thousands of us showed up for the anti-war marches in 2003 and Jim Hightower's Rolling Thunder event, for the women's marches, and for Ned Doyle's Southern Energy and Environment Expos. Attendance at our MLK Day breakfast is the largest in the United States and has been for years. And we activists show up to vote. Dennis Kucinich won the 2004 primary in Buncombe County. When Buncombe County's votes reached Raleigh, it flipped the state for Obama in 2008. By the same 10,000 or so votes that he won the state by. And Bernie won the primary here in 2016 with 68% of the vote. Your vote matters. It's no wonder the Republicans in the General Assembly are afraid of Asheville, and they are. We are home to the Campaign for Southern Equality, providing legal and moral support for LGBTQ people across the South. We have Nuestro Centro, working to support Latinx people and the culture across the region. Buncombe County Sheriff Quentin Miller says he will not participate in ICE's 287G program. We have Building Bridges, working to erase racism by engendering interracial understanding. We have the Canary Coalition, which has successfully worked to clean up smokestacks around the region. We have the Dogwood Alliance, which has successfully gotten Staples and other office supplies to carry more recycled paper and getting big burger chains to use less paper waste. We have Mountain True, that's worked for decades to protect our environment in the Southern Appalachians. And now we have Blue Horizons, which is already transforming our energy future. We are home base for Just Economics, which certifies hundreds of businesses as living wage employers, including the city of Asheville. And ominously, we're the headquarters of the National Centers for Environmental Information, which is struggling to release climate data in spite of the person in the White House. Perhaps worst of all for this state is that Buncombe has the highest per capita ownership of hybrid and electric vehicles in the state. It's gotten so scary that they've just passed or tried to pass a bill to raise a tax on electric vehicles because we aren't buying enough gasoline out here. Biltmore Estate is as emblematic a symbol of inherited wealth as exists in this country. But if I asked you what Biltmore has in common with New Belgium Brewery, a worker-owned cooperative, or Sierra Nevada, a family-owned business, or the Asheville Independent Restaurant Association, or the Buncombe County government, you might be stumped. But they have all made very substantial investments in solar power. Whether it's the solar roofs on those breweries, the solar farm at Biltmore, or the one that the county's about to build, or the solar hot water heaters on locally owned restaurants, it's clear that Asheville is dedicated to a zero-carbon future. Speaking of breweries, we're recognized as Beer City USA, but we're also the founding city of Bee City USA, a program that's enlisting municipalities across the country to protect pollinators. Between the beer and the bees, if you can't catch a buzz in Asheville, you aren't trying. But you, in this crowd, have caught the buzz. All of the issues that activists in Asheville have been fighting for are part of Bernie's platform. He spent his political career fighting for us, and it's time for us to fight for Bernie. I have no doubt that just as Buncombe voters tipped the balance for Obama in 2008, Buncombe voters can lead the way when Bernie wins the 2020 primary in North Carolina and the general election that fall. This time we win. Thank you.
The owner of the Blue Dream Curry House is a progressive businessman deeply committed to livable wages. Let's give it up for James Allen Sutherland.
What's up, Asheville? How's everybody feeling? We ready for Bernie? Yeah. So, my name's James Sutherland. I'm one of the owners of Blue Dream Curry House in downtown Asheville. Sorry. Anyway, there we go. Just a little background about Blue Dream. I grew up in Atlanta, and I worked in restaurants for a long time. And I saw a lot of people that were working 60-hour weeks or 80-hour weeks to be able to pay their bills, just to put a roof over their head and feed themselves and their families. And a lot of people are getting paid $8 or $9 an hour, and they're working really hard for that. So when we came up to Asheville, we started Blue Dream. We wanted to make sure that a living wage was the base wage for our restaurant from the beginning. And thanks to organizations like Just Economics, they do living wage certification for businesses, and it makes it really easy for businesses to be able to make that transition. They also do a lot of research to try to figure out what a living wage is in North Carolina, in Western North Carolina. That's one of the core tenets of Blue Dream, and there's been so many benefits to our business. We've established a brand that I think can last, and that's something that a lot of businesses need to take into consideration, that it's not just about short-term gain. It's also about trying to build something for the future, and if you want to have a successful business, you need to have a base that it's built from. And another issue that I think is really important, because good wages are one thing, but if you can't get to and from your job, then it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid. And transportation infrastructure, and especially in Asheville with this service economy here, everybody needs more transportation options, especially late night buses. We need walking and bike paths. We need to have regional transportation, some kind of train system in the future. And it's a shame that people have to take an Uber or Lyft after their shift and spend $10 out of the $50 that they've made on their shift. So it's time for a change. And so the question is, how are we going to create this change? How are we going to have fair wages for everybody in this country? And also, how are we going to create transportation infrastructure in this country? Well, step one is we elect Bernie Sanders President of the United States.
Sunrise is a movement to address the climate crisis through the Green New Deal and create millions of good jobs in the process. Please welcome local hub organizer Ashley McDermott.
What's up, Asheville? My name is Ashley McDermott. Thank you so much to the Bernie campaign for inviting me to speak a little bit about the work that we're doing. And I just have to say it's amazing that Bernie is the first presidential candidate to visit us this cycle. Clearly, he recognizes the force that we are in Appalachia. What do y'all think? Not to mention that he smoked Buncombe County, but he won 15 out of 18 of Western North Carolina counties last time around, which is also Mark Meadows' district, so we're going to do it again. I am an activist, volunteer, campaign staffer, overall worker of the gig economy, and most recently I've had the honor to become the hub coordinator for the Asheville chapter of the Sunrise Movement. In 2018, the world's top scientists warned we only have 12 years to transform our economy to avoid catastrophic environmental breakdown, quote, within our lifetimes. So, The Sunrise Movement is building an army of young people to fight climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, y'all know her? Yeah. She brought a plan to Congress that matches the urgency and scale of the climate crisis that we face, the only one on the table that matches that urgency, and that is the Green New Deal. So with AOC, Sunrise has put the Green New Deal on the national political agenda and permanently changed the conversation on climate policy in this country, even when pundits said it was impossible. Even when we know that corrupt politicians and fossil fuel billionaires are spreading lies about it because it threatens their profits. So, over the past 2 months, Sunrise has held hundreds of town halls across the country, taking the Green New Deal to every corner of it. Just last week at the DC Town Hall, Bernie Sanders himself, with AOC, joined them on stage at the end of the Green New Deal tour. Sunrise Asheville, just a few weeks ago, held our town hall. And not only did we hear from some of our powerful high school Sunrise members about the moral urgency of the climate crisis that we face, but we also reached out to local organizers who are doing the work of the Green New Deal in town right now. Those that are fighting for fully equitable, accessible, functional public transit, like Better Buses Together. Like beloved Asheville, who's creating community gardens in our poor, marginalized communities. For the local 128 ATU Transit Union, who are fighting for fair workplace treatment and living wages. And we're doing this because we know that we need to lay the groundwork locally in order for this to pass nationally. That we need to work together, we need to build coalitions in order to get where we need to be in order to accomplish our federal scale. So as a hub, we will be making sure that climate justice is talked about in terms of both equity as well as renewable energy. That if elected officials and candidates from the bottom up, city, county, legislative, federal, and presidential, if they want our support, they'll have to take the no fossil fuel money pledge, just like Bernie Sanders already has. And stop letting fossil fuel money influence our elections. And we will make sure that all of these elected officials and candidates know that, yes, youth do vote, and they will enforce this election. So, my ask for y'all here today is to just get involved. This is the time. Come to our next Sunrise meeting on May 29th, Sunrise Movement AVL on Facebook and Instagram. Get involved with the local campaign. Get involved with Bernie's campaign. Step outside your computers and go knock on some doors and make some phone calls. Because I know that if all y'all here pitch in, we can elect leaders like Bernie all the way down the ballot to lead us to the change that we need to see in 2020. Thank you.
Chris Rowan describes herself as a teacher and a mother. She was just invited by Senator Bernie Sanders to speak to us today.
Hi, everybody. So I just met Bernie, and he just asked me after talking, be gentle with me. Wasn't planning on this. We had a small meeting, community meeting with Bernie, and I was telling Bernie that I grew up poor, working poor. My mom had 3 kids. She worked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., no car. She worked 12 hours a day. We never had enough, anything, especially health care. If we needed to go to the doctor, we went to the emergency room. When my mom became ill, first cancer, heart failure, diabetes, there was no money to pay for her medication. Every single month we made choices. Do we pay the electric bill or do we buy my mom's medicine? We lived 2 weeks one time with no electricity. We would go to the pharmacist and buy 1 pill, 5 pills, whatever we could get, like addicts. Whatever we had enough that day to keep my mom going. It was shameful on all fronts. I cannot understand how working class people cannot support universal health care, because I can tell you that when we had to go to the emergency room for basic health care, it was standing room only, even in the halls. And they were not all Democrats. We are all in this together. We all need universal health care. And I truly believe we need Bernie. Go Bernie! And he's even nicer than you think, everybody. I got 2 hugs.
It is my privilege to announce the co-chair of the 2020 campaign, Senator Nina Turner.
Asheville! 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 Where you at, Asheville? My goodness. It is such a pleasure to be back here. I was here last year. It's good to be back here with you this year. I love you too, baby. Oh my goodness. Can we just dialogue for about 5 minutes? Is that all right? We are in a moment of transcendence. And all of you understand from your experiences, from your family's experiences, just from life experiences, that there comes a point in time when we got to make a decision. And we as a country can no longer continue on a path that breeds hate and division. We got to do some things. And the reason why I say we, because even when we get Senator Bernard Sanders elected as the next president of the United States of America, he is still going to need our help to push an agenda that is for the majority and not just for the few. And Senator Sanders feels this thing deeply. And we got the receipts. So I need you all to hashtag receipts. He is not new to this. His commitment to social justice and racial justice and economic justice and environmental justice did not just start in his run for president. He has lived those values. We got the receipts. And can I say something, Asheville? I'm excited to compare his record to anybody running in this race in 2020. Oh yeah, I am. We got the receipts. Senator Sanders' father was an immigrant from Poland. Many of you may know that. And his father came to this country escaping the Holocaust. And I want you to wrap your mind around that. Some of his family, he never got a chance to get to know. So when the senator talks about his understanding about needing a humane immigration system. He understands that from lived experience. Him and his brother grew up in Brooklyn. We got some Brooklynites in the house. And rent-controlled housing. His mother died at the young age of 46 years old. One of the things that she always wanted for her family was for them to own their own home. And it was something that she never lived to realize. So when Senator Sanders stands up and he says that we need a government that understands that the working poor and barely middle class in this family don't desire to be in those conditions, that they desire to live a good life, he understands that from lived experience. We got the receipts. And although some folks don't want to talk about history, I, as a history professor, just believe that history matters. So when he was the age of a lot of the millennials that are here right now, he was the president of CORE at the University of Chicago. He stood up against segregation, housing segregation. We got the receipts. He spoke out against policies that would take away opportunities for returning citizens to have access to Pell Grants. He voted against that. He stood up and talked about how atrocious the crime bill would be for generations against African Americans. And poor communities. We got the receipts. And when it was not popular, Senator Sanders stood up for the working class people of this country. Some of you may remember that in 2010, he filibustered for over 8 hours against the extension of the Bush tax cuts. Senator Sanders worked to enhance the ACA by working side by side with Congressman Jim Clyburn to get $11 billion put into that bill for community health centers. And last year, 2016, you all may recall that the senator was talking about Medicare for all. It wasn't his first time talking about Medicare for all, because he just believes that in the wealthiest country on the face of the earth that people shouldn't have to grovel for health care. We got the receipts. And when he talks about college for all, sisters and brothers, it is the same commitment that at once upon a time in this country that we made to have K through 12 education. We need to make that same commitment for higher education. And I can tell you, as a first-generation college graduate and somebody that was able to become a cycle breaker, I understand personally what a college education can do. Personally. Congresswoman Barbara Jordan once said that what the people want is very simple. They want an America as good as its promise. That is what Senator Sanders is working for, an America as good as its promise for all people. President Teddy Roosevelt once said, I got to bring in Teddy, far and away, the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at a work worth doing. Sisters and brothers, all of us have a role to play. This is not just about Senator Bernie Sanders. One of the things that the senator always says is that it is not about me, it is about us. All of us. we all have a story to tell. We all have endured some things. But what we can do, let me just say, titles are good. They get your phone calls returned. They get you in the room. Sometimes folks get in the room, sisters and brothers, and they forget why they're there. Titles are good, but purpose is better. And we need more purpose-driven people from all over this world, all over this country, to gather together and to say that enough is enough. We will no longer stand for the ultra-wealthy making their profit on our backs and our necks. We're not going to stand for it. And to my teachers in the house, you deserve better than what you're getting in the state of North Carolina. Boggles my mind how the profession that molds the minds of carpenters and doctors and lawyers and future presidents can be treated the way that teachers are being treated in this country. We're not going to stand for it. And for the working poor in this country, it is a sin and a shame that we have a system that is so rigged that not only does it criminalize poverty, but you got folks in the upper echelons of this society who pretend like they are the only ones that deserve to live a good life. Well, I got a news flash for them. We are about to change all of that. Nobody says that they want to be poor when they grow up. Nobody. Everybody has a hope and a dream, but sometimes life throws us curveballs, and it takes some folks longer to be able to get to the peak of that mountain. And that is why collectively we ought to give some kids here. We ought to care about what happens to our sisters and brothers, because what happens to one happens to all. And I'm about to close this thing up. I'm feeling all types of ways. Pamela Turner is on my mind. And I don't know how many of you watched that video of that sister being gunned down, shot 5 times. She's not the only one. We can name a whole bunch of names. What are you saying, Sister Turner? I am saying this, that we must reform a criminal justice system that sees black men and black women as less than anybody else in this country. We're not standing for it. We're just not going to do it anymore. When we say justice for all, that's exactly what we mean. Justice for all. Whether you are black or white or Latinx or Asian or Native American or Indian American, the rainbow mosaic of humanity, we cannot stand for systems that encourage racism, sexism, ageism, bigotry. We're not standing for it. Justice for all. That's what we mean. Now, sisters and brothers, also what that means is that we got to put some sweat equity on this thing. We got to bring something. And so in order for us to have the transcendence that I started my talk with you off with, it means that all of you have to get involved. You got to be engaged. Because even when we get Senator Sanders elected, he cannot do it by himself. This system is going to resist. But there is nothing, sisters and brothers, and I want you to hear me clearly, there is nothing greater, stronger, more beautiful than a conscious-minded people on the move. Asheville, we are on the move. We're on the move. So I need you to go to BernieSanders.com. If you have not already signed up to be 1 in a million, I need you to sign up. Go to BernieSanders.com and sign up because we need you. Now, can you do something for a sister? Can you raise one hand for yourself and the other hand for somebody else? With these hands, we will have Medicare for all. With these hands, we will have college for all. With these hands, women will get their whole damn dollar. With these hands, we will have comprehensive, humane immigration reform. With these hands, we will take care of Mother Earth. With these hands, we will ensure that Lottie Dottie and everybody has opportunities in this country. And with these hands, we will elect Senator Bernie Sanders, the next president of the United States of America. With these hands.
Thank you, North Carolina. Now, I was told that coming to North Carolina wouldn't make much sense. It was a Republican state. Doesn't look like that today. Well, let me thank the thousands of people who came out today. Let me thank the Ashley Heath Band. Let me thank Cecil Bothwell, James Sutherland, Ashley McDermott. And I want to thank Chris Rowan. I just met Chris an hour or so ago, and we had a little meeting. And she talked about the experience that her family had in poverty and without health care. And it seemed to me that Chris's story and her family's story is the story of millions and millions of Americans, and I thank her so much for having the courage to come up here and speak. And let me thank my fellow political revolutionary, Nina Turner. Nina has been running all over this country doing the most important work that any of us can do, and that is bringing people into the political process, getting people to stand up and fight for justice. Nina, thank you. So North Carolina and all of you who are out here today, let me thank you for being part of a campaign which is not only going to win the Democratic nomination, which is not only going to defeat Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in modern American history, but with your help, is going to transform this country and finally create an economy and a government which works for all people, not just the 1%. The working people of this country, whether they're in North Carolina or in Vermont, are sick and tired of a government that bends over backwards for the rich and the powerful. And we want a government that speaks to the needs of all people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And today I come before you and welcome you to a campaign which says with confidence, with optimism, and with love that the underlying principles of our government, your government and my government, will not be greed, will not be hatred, and will not be lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, it will not be sexism, it will not be xenophobia, it will not be homophobia, and it will not be religious bigotry. Those ugly anti-American sentiments of the Trump administration are going to end, and we are going to end it for them. The principles of our government will be based on a time-honored American tradition, and that is justice for all. And that means economic justice, it means social justice, it means racial justice, and it means environmental justice. And in that regard, let me just say a few words about some very recent and disturbing developments that are taking place right now. All across this country at this very moment, there is a well-funded attack coordinated by right-wing extremists to deny women the right to control their own bodies. As all of you know, just this week, Alabama passed the most restrictive law in the country, outlawing all abortions, even if a woman was raped or if a 13-year-old girl was the victim of incest. The Alabama legislature and governor actually believe that it is appropriate to force a woman to have the baby of her rapist. How grotesque is that? And that law even criminalizes abortion, punishing both women and doctors who could face years in prison if they were found guilty. And last week, it's not just Alabama, the governor of Georgia signed a law that would outlaw abortion before many women even know if they're pregnant. The goals of these laws is nothing less than overturning Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decision guaranteeing a woman the right to control her own body. Make no mistake about it, these laws are incredibly dangerous, they are regressive, and they are blatantly unconstitutional. And together, we are going to fight those laws in every way possible. Because if they are implemented, the consequences will be absolutely disastrous and threaten the very lives of women. It is not an exaggeration to say that banning legal, medically assisted abortion and forcing women back into the arms of quacks will quite literally kill women. That is what happened before Roe v. Wade, and we will not go back. And so today, we say to the governments of Alabama, Georgia, and all of those states who are trying to take away a woman's right to control her own body, we are not going backwards, we are going forwards. And let me be quite clear. The Republicans who support these laws are total and absolute hypocrites. Day after day, and I say this as a member of the U.S. Senate, day after day, I hear my colleagues, Republican colleagues, coming to the floor of the Senate, and they say, we are conservatives, we believe in small government, we want to get the government out of the lives of the American people. Except when it comes to half of the population and the right of women to make their own personal decisions. A woman's right to control her own body is a constitutional right, and we will not stop fighting until that right is absolutely secure in every state in this country. And let me say something to the men who are here today. This is not just a woman's issue. This is an issue that impacts all of us. And the men must stand with the women in their moment of need. All right, guys, you in this struggle as well? And when we talk about some of the dangerous situations we're facing today, it is not just the attack on Roe v. Wade. It is also the growing discussions in the Trump administration about the possibility of a U.S. attack on Iran. As someone who did as much as I possibly could in trying to prevent the United States from getting involved in the horrific war in Iraq, which turns out to be one of the great and worst foreign policy blunders in the history of this country. Let me tell you that a war with Iran would be even worse. It would result in increased destabilization in a part of the world which is already destabilized. It would mean more deaths and injuries for American soldiers and more death and misery for the people in that region who have already suffered so much. In fact, and this is what I believe, a war with Iran could unleash dark forces and unintended consequences which could lead to never-ending wars in that region, perpetual warfare, which your kids and your grandchildren would be experiencing. As former General Anthony Zinni stated about the possibility of such a war, quote, "If you like the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, you will love Iran," end quote. Now, the reason that we should be concerned about the possibility of a war with Iran is that President Trump has installed as his national security advisor John Bolton. Oh, you know John Bolton. Bolton, as you may know, was one of the prime architects of the war in Iraq as an advisor to President Bush. And he is one of the very few people in this world who still believes that the war in Iraq was a good idea. Now, some of you may know for the first time in 45 years, we managed in the Senate, and I helped lead that effort in the Senate. We worked in a bipartisan way. We managed to win in the House a resolution for the first time in 45 years under the War Powers Act to get the U.S. out of the Saudi-led intervention in Yemen. All right, and we're going to work as hard as we can in a bipartisan way to make sure there are 51 members of the Senate who tell Trump not only that a war in Iran would be a disaster, but it is unconstitutional. Somebody in his staff should show the president something that he is very unfamiliar with, obviously, and that is the Constitution of the United States. It is the Congress that has the power to declare war, not the president. Brothers and sisters, Donald Trump thinks he is going to win re-election by being extremely cynical, and that is by trying to divide the American people up based on the color of their skin, based on the country they came from, based on their sexual orientation, based on their gender, based on their religion. Well, I got news for Trump. That is a strategy that is going to fail. And together we are going to do exactly the opposite of what Trump is trying to do. He is trying to divide us up, and we are going to bring our people together. Black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, gay and straight, native-born and immigrants. And that will be our path toward victory. Standing together as one people, fighting for justice, we will not be stopped. And when we stand together and we fight for justice, it means that we are going to end the drift toward oligarchy in America. We are going to end the obscene situation where 3 families in America own more wealth than the bottom half of the country. When the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. And when people in North Carolina and Vermont are working 2 or 3 jobs to pay the bills, 49% of all new income is going to the top 1%. Together, we're going to create an economy that works for working people, not just the billionaire class. Justice means that at a time when half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, we are not going to give massive tax breaks to profitable corporations and the wealthiest people in this country. And justice means that we will no longer accept the greed of corporate America, where the CEOs at the top of these corporations are earning over 300 times what their employees make. And today we say to corporate America, stop the greed. Pay attention to the needs of your workers, not just your stockholders. And when we talk about injustice in this country, we are also talking about racial injustice. At a time of massive levels of disparity in our country, the situation is much worse for African American families. It is not acceptable that black families own 1/10 of the wealth of white families, that the infant mortality rate in black communities is 2.5 times what it is in white communities, that redlining in housing continues to exist, that black businesses cannot get the loans they need. So let us be clear. When we fight for justice, that means ending institutional racism in every aspect of our lives. But it is not just economic justice we are fighting for. It is ending a corrupt political system. We hold the radical view that American democracy means one person, one vote, not billionaires spending hundreds of millions of dollars to buy elections. And that is why together we will overturn that disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. I'll tell you, a lot of things gall me, a lot of things get me angry. But there's one thing that upsets me almost more than anything else, and that is that you have cowardly Republican governors who do not have the guts to participate in free, fair, and open elections because they know when large numbers of people vote, they lose. So they are working overtime to try to suppress the vote, deny poor people, people of color, and young people the right to participate in our political system. And I say to those cowardly Republican governors, if you don't have the guts to participate in free elections, get the hell out of politics and get a new job. Thank you. I want to say something to you, which is in the midst of a lot of bad news, there's some really good news. And that is in the last 4 years, since I last campaigned here in North Carolina, on major issue after major issue, ideas which 4 years ago seemed radical and extreme are now the ideas that the overwhelming majority of the American people support. And I thank you for helping to make that happen. 4 years ago, when we talked about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, we were told it was a radical idea. Not anymore. 7 states have already done that. And let me tell you, your minimum wage here in North Carolina is what, $7.25 an hour? I don't know how anybody thinks that anybody can live on $7.25 or $8 or $9 an hour. 4 years ago, when we said that health care is a human right, we were told that that was a radical idea that the American people wouldn't accept it. Poll just came out the other day, consistent with other polls. 70% of the American people support a Medicare for all single-payer program. 4 years ago, we were told that when we said we need to combat our broken criminal justice system and legalize or decriminalize marijuana, we were told that was a radical idea. Ain't such a radical idea today. State after state is doing exactly that. 4 years ago, I was in a national TV debate, and the moderator said, Senator Sanders, what do you consider to be the major foreign policy and national security crisis that we face? And I think they expected me to say Al-Qaeda, ISIS, which are very serious threats to the country. But I responded and I said, you know what? The major national security crisis we face is climate change. And the moderator actually laughed. Well, they are not laughing today. So we have made progress in a number of areas, and what this campaign is about are taking our ideas, the ideas that are accepted now by not only the overwhelming majority of Americans, but almost every Democratic candidate from dog catcher to President of the United States. And our job now is to bring our people together and to take that agenda and to make it the law of the land. That's what this campaign is about. But let me tell you something that I don't know that any other candidate will tell you. And that is, in my view, no president, not the most honest and well-intentioned, can do it alone. And the reasons for that, and you're not going to see this on TV very much, but the reasons for that is that the powers that be in the establishment today have so much money and so much influence that the only way we make the change we need is not just by having a good president, it's by millions of people standing up, fighting back, and demanding that change. So when the message of our campaign says it's not me, it's us, this is not just a bumper sticker, although it may be a bumper sticker. This is the essence of what the political revolution is about. You have to appreciate, and I'm in Washington all the time, the power of Wall Street, where you have 6 financial institutions that have assets equivalent to 54% of the GDP of America. A handful of banks control the flow of trillions of dollars. The power of the insurance companies, of the pharmaceutical industry, of the military-industrial complex, of the fossil fuel industry. So our job together is to stand up to them, because at the end of the day, you know, the 1% has a lot of money and a lot of power. But at the end of the day, if my arithmetic is correct, 99% is a hell of a big number compared to 1%. So let me very briefly tell you what we, and I underline the word we, are going to do when we get to the White House. We are finally going to join every other major country on earth, guarantee health care to all through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Last year, the top 10 drug companies made $69 billion in profit, and they charge us the highest prices in the world. We're going to cut prescription drug costs in this country by 50%. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We should not have an infrastructure which is crumbling. A $1 trillion investment will put 15 million people into good-paying jobs. In America, when you turn on the water faucet, you should be able to get clean drinking water. And today we say what is increasingly obvious to governors and mayors all over this country, and that is, in a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. So we are going to do a number of things. Number one, in the year 2019, we're going to be making public colleges and universities tuition-free. Number two, we're going to end the absurdity of millions of people being crushed by outrageous levels of student debt. If the Congress can give $1.5 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations, we damn well can forgive student debt for millions of Americans. Today, we say to Trump and the fossil fuel industry that climate change is not a hoax, it is an existential threat to this country and the world. It is beyond belief that we have a fossil fuel industry which continues to lie and lie and lie. They are trying to deny the reality of climate change and what causes climate change. And unbelievably, they are willing to threaten the long-term health of our planet for short-term profits. So today we say to Trump and the fossil fuel industry, whether you like it or not, we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies. And by the way, when we do that, we're going to create millions of good-paying jobs. And today we say to the prison industrial complex that whether they like it or not, we are going to bring about real criminal justice reform in this country. I am sick and tired. I am sick and tired, as you are, of being in a nation today which has more people in jail, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American, more people in jail than any other country on earth. Now, instead of spending $80 billion a year to lock up fellow Americans, we are going to invest in our young people, in jobs and education, not in jail and incarceration. It is cheaper to send somebody to the University of North Carolina than to send them to jail. Let's get our priorities right. And we talk about criminal justice reform. It means that we are going to end private prisons in this country. Corporations should not be making money locking up fellow Americans. It means we're going to end the disastrous war on drugs. Too many lives have been lost. Too many people have seen terrible damage to their future because of arrest for possessing marijuana. And we're going to begin the process of expunging the records of those who are arrested for possession. Now, you may not know this. Not a lot of people do. But today in America, there are some 400,000 people in jail this moment. And their crime is they are poor and cannot afford bail. In other words, we're going back to the debtor prisons of 150 years ago. This is unconscionable. We're going to end the cash bail system. And today, we say loudly that we will no longer accept the demonization of undocumented people in this country. And we are going to do what the American people want us to do, and that is bring about comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. We're going to provide legal status to the 1.8 million young people in the DACA program. And we are going to develop a humane border policy for those who seek asylum. America is not and must never be a country where babies are snatched from the arms of their mothers. And today we say to the military-industrial complex that we will not continue to spend more money on defense than the next 10 nations combined. We are going to invest in affordable housing. We're going to invest in public education. We are not going to invest in endless wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Iran, or any place else. Our foreign policy is to bring people together and try to diplomatically work out differences, not bomb them into the Stone Age. And today we say to the top 1% and to private corporations who have never had it so good, you are not going to keep that $1.5 trillion in tax breaks that Trump gave you. We're taking it back. We will no longer accept an absurd situation where large, profitable corporations pay zero in taxes. Anybody here know how much Amazon paid in taxes last year? It's a smart group of people. Zero. This is a company made $11 billion in profits, owned by the wealthiest guy in America, paid nothing in taxes. Together, we're going to come up and develop a progressive tax system which demands that the wealthiest people in this country and the large corporations start paying their fair share. And let me tell you some of the other things we're going to do when we are in the White House. We are finally going to develop a federal jobs guarantee. If you want a job in America and you're able to work, there will be a job because there's more than enough work to be done. We need workers to rebuild our infrastructure to combat climate change, to teach our kids, to do child care. There is more than enough work to be done. Let's put our people to work doing it at good wages. And when we are in the White House together, we're going to move aggressively to end the epidemic of gun violence in this country. And pass the common sense gun legislation that the overwhelming majority of Americans, gun owners and not, want to see happen. We will not be intimidated by the NRA. Here is the story. The story is that on issue after issue, virtually every issue that I touched upon today, and some important ones that I didn't, the American people are with us. The American people know there is something insane and wrong about a middle class which has been shrinking for 40 years, where we have 40 million people living in poverty while the very richest people are becoming even richer. That's what the American people understand. They know that there's something absurd when we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all. Not a radical idea. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They do it. The UK does it. Scandinavia does it. Germany does it. Every country, major country on earth does it. Don't tell me that the United States of America cannot guarantee health care to all people. And I want you to think about a world in which we have a president who does not deny the reality of climate change, but a president who will lead the world together in combating climate change. Think about a world in which we are not spending well over $1 trillion a year on weapons designed to kill people, but a world in which we are investing in sustainable energy and energy efficiency. So here's where we are today. And I want to say a special word to the folks in North Carolina who voted for Donald Trump. Probably not many of them here, but many in the state. And this is what I want to say. I do understand why people voted for Trump in North Carolina, in Vermont, and around this country. And that is that people felt that they were ignored. People cannot afford health care. They're earning starvation wages. They're seeing their jobs going to Mexico and China. They can't afford to send their kids to college. I understand that. But what I want to tell the people in North Carolina who voted for Trump, and I say this without any joy in my heart, he is a pathological liar, and he lied to you during the campaign. He told the people of North Carolina that he would provide health care for everybody. Remember that? And then he tried to throw 32 million people off the health care they already had. Trump said he would not cut Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Take a look at his budget. $1.5 trillion cut in Medicaid, $800 billion cut in Medicare, billions in Social Security. Trump told the people of North Carolina that his tax proposal would not benefit the wealthy. Ho, ho, ho. 83% of the benefits over a 10-year period go to the top 1%. Bottom line is, Trump said he would be a friend and supporter of the working class of this country. He betrayed them. All right, here's where we are. Where we are right now is that if we stand together and we don't allow Trump and his allies to divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation, if we stand together and keep our eyes on the prize, which is a progressive agenda that works for all and not just wealthy campaign contributors, if we do that, We're not only going to win in November 2020, we're going to win in big numbers. Let's go forward together. Thank you all very much.